Welcome to Cyberspace. I'm your host, Leslie Poston, and today we're hosting a special episode diving into the potent power of language in shaping public opinion and policy. Specifically, we're examining how emotionally charged phrases like "for the children" are used to rally support for legislation and initiatives, sometimes with the cost of broader consequences. We'll explore the proposed KOSA legislation, among other examples, to understand how such language acts as a psychological lever to sway public perception and drive policy. This phrase often creates the appearance of an unquestionable moral high ground that makes dissent difficult, as no one wants to appear against protecting children. Research by Dr. Susan T. Fisk at Princeton University highlights how policymakers use emotionally charged language to manipulate societal norms and expectations, effectively reducing complex issues to simple moral judgments that are difficult to oppose without appearing morally disengaged. Language isn't just a tool for communication, it's also a powerful mechanism for control. Phrases like "for the children" tap into our deepest fears and hopes, often bypassing rational analysis and appealing directly to our emotions. Academic research, such as the work presented in the Journal of Cognitive Linguistics, suggests that such phrases can short-circuit critical thinking by invoking strong emotional responses that align with our innate protective instincts. This emotional appeal often leads to the acceptance of policies without scrutiny of their broader implications or effectiveness. Additional studies, like those conducted by Dr. Paul Slovic, demonstrate how emotional framing in communication can affect decision-making processes, especially in policy contexts where emotional cues guide public attitudes more strongly than factual data. These findings suggest that strategic language use in political rhetoric, such as the phrase "for the children," can significantly influence public policy outcomes by shaping perceptions of urgency and importance. The utilization of emotionally laden phrases like "for the children" not only catalyze immediate emotional response, but also serve to simplify complex issues into binary choices of right or wrong. This dichotomy can obscure the nuanced realities of policymaking, reducing the public's ability to engage critically with the details of legislation. A study from the University of Pennsylvania finds that such simplification can lead to increased public support for policies, even when these policies might have disputable long-term benefits or significant drawbacks, illustrating the power of emotive language to alter public discourse. Furthermore, the use of such language can perpetuate a cycle where critical oversight is diminished over time as the public becomes accustomed to responding emotionally rather than analytically. This normalization of emotional rhetoric in policy discussions poses a risk to democratic processes by prioritizing emotional appeal over detailed scrutiny or informed debate. According to research published in the Harvard Political Review, this trend can lead to legislative decisions that are less about the efficacy of the policy and more about the emotional resonance with the electorate, potentially leading to governance that favors populist sentiment over practical outcomes. Now, let's dig into a current and relevant example. One might even say urgent: the KOSA legislation, or the Kids Online Safety Act, officially known as Senate Bill 1409. The bill, set to be voted on as early as next week, proposes stringent controls ostensibly to protect children online, a stated motive designed to be difficult to challenge. However, critics of the bill point out that it will likely have severe unintended consequences, including undermining user privacy, encouraging government and platform overreach, and stifling free speech. By examining both the language used to promote the bill and the detailed content it encompasses, we uncover this potential for overreach and the erosion of digital rights. This analysis helps us understand how the emotionally charged plea of "for the children" might be masking more invasive measures that could affect all users, not just the youth. The bill's language includes terms that are vague and broad, allowing for the aforementioned potential misuse and overreach. Legal experts, such as those from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, have expressed concerns that such laws, while marketed as well-intentioned, too often lead to increased surveillance and reduced freedoms, impacting everyone negatively. The KOSA legislation also stipulates that digital platforms implement measures to prevent children from encountering harmful content, a mandate that necessitates deep algorithmic intervention and potentially invasive monitoring of user activities of all age groups. While protecting children is certainly a noble goal, the implementation of such measures could set a precedent for broader and more ambiguous applications of surveillance technologies. This could inadvertently create a slippery slope effect, where increased surveillance becomes normalized in other contexts under the guise of various protections. Further complicating matters is the question of who determines what is deemed harmful to children. This subjectivity could lead to arbitrary enforcement and censorship, particularly affecting content creators and educators who discuss topics that are vital yet considered sensitive by some groups. Scholars like Susan Benesch, founder of the Dangerous Speech Project at Harvard University's Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society, argue that these vague criteria can lead to chilling effects, where individuals self-censor to avoid potential repercussions, which in turn stifles the vibrant exchange of ideas essential for a healthy democracy. You may be seeing some similarities between these issues and our episode last week with linguistic evasion on algorithms. In fact, this isn't the first time such language has been employed. From the Patriot Act to various censorship laws across the globe, "for the children" has been a recurrent theme to justify extensive control measures. You may recognize other similar thought-limiting phrases, like "vote blue no matter who" or "it is what it is," and intuitively understand how they serve to limit discourse and critical examination. By examining historical examples where similar language led to harmful outcomes, we can draw parallels to current situations and foster a deeper understanding of the high stakes involved. Historically, similar tactics were used during the McCarthy era and in support of the war on drugs in the United States, where emotionally charged rhetoric often preempted rational debate and led to policies that later proved to have devastating societal impacts. A review of historical legislative actions shows a pattern where emotionally charged language precedes some of the most controversial and negatively impactful policy decisions. In addition to the examples discussed, the use of emotive language to rally public support can be traced back to other significant events, such as the promotion of the War on Terror in the early 2000s. Politicians and media outlets frequently employed phrases that played on public fear and nationalism, often referred to as the thought-limiting phrase patriotic duty, to garner support for military actions and surveillance policies that had long-term consequences on personal freedoms and international relations. The language of urgency and protection effectively muted critical voices and expedited the passage of legislation like the Homeland Security Act of 2002. Academic studies have examined the psychological impact of such rhetoric on public opinion. Research published in the Journal of Social and Political Psychology highlights how government and media framing during crisis situations can significantly alter public perceptions and behaviors. The study illustrates that when authorities use fear-inducing language, it can lead to overestimation of threat and a corresponding increase in the public's willingness to concede civil liberties in exchange for perceived security. This manipulation of public sentiment through strategic language use showcases the powerful role of rhetoric in shaping policy and public response, emphasizing the need for vigilance and critical thinking among citizens. Understanding the role of education and media in perpetuating or dismantling thought-limiting phrases is crucial. It's imperative to understand how media literacy and critical thinking skills, if adequately taught, can arm individuals against manipulative language. By fostering a critical awareness among the public, we can encourage a more scrutinous approach to emotionally charged rhetoric and promote a society that values thoughtful discourse over emotionally manipulated reactions. Educational initiatives that focus on critical media literacy, such as those supported by UNESCO, aim to empower students and adults alike to recognize and critically evaluate the language used in media and political discourse. These programs are vital in developing a discerning citizenry capable of engaging in more informed and nuanced discussions about policy issues. Additionally, the integration of critical media literacy into educational curricula would not only equip individuals with the tools to deconstruct manipulative language, but also encourage active participation in our democratic processes. This approach helps individuals identify bias and propaganda and fosters a deeper understanding of how media shapes perception and influences behaviors. According to a study by the Annenberg Public Policy Center, such educational practices contribute significantly to the resilience of democratic societies by promoting informed skepticism among voters. Beyond formal education, public awareness campaigns and community workshops play a critical role in enhancing media literacy across different age groups and socioeconomic backgrounds. These initiatives, often organized in collaboration with civic groups and educational institutions, provide practical examples of how manipulative language operates in real-world contexts. The Center for Media Literacy advocates for these interactive, community-based approaches as they have been shown to effectively increase critical thinking skills and reduce susceptibility to emotionally charged, misleading information. By nurturing a culture that values and promotes critical thinking and media literacy, we could mitigate the influence of manipulative language on public opinion. This cultural shift could lead to more robust public discourse and ultimately policies that are more reflective of the collective will and less driven by manipulative emotional appeals and special interest groups. As citizens become more adept at questioning and analyzing the language used in public discourse, they contribute to a more transparent and accountable communicative environment. As we wrap up, remember, language is not just about expressing thoughts, it's about shaping them as well. The phrase for the children, while seemingly benign or even benevolent, is frequently used as a Trojan horse for broader agendas. It's our responsibility as informed citizens to look beyond the surface emotional appeal of such phrases and understand the deeper implications they may carry. By staying open-minded and critical of the media we consume, we can better navigate the complex landscape of political and social discourse. Thank you for joining me on this exploration into the psychological and societal power of language. As always, I'm your host, Leslie Poston. Until next time, stay curious.